Deeper Cinema presents the best actresses from 1895 to 1919. In 10th place, Dorothy Phillips for The Heart of Humanity. Dorothy Phillips was indeed the wife of Alan Hollabar, the director of this film, but any misconceptions of her merits of starring this film are let aside by merely watching it. Besides, Dorothy had a solid career back then and had talent to spare to carry on her shoulders a film of this magnitude. An actress in cinema since 1911, she had a difficult part in this film, as a simple woman in Canada who goes to the First World War as a nurse, and that includes a classical infamous scene in which she sees the character of Erich von Stroheim not only throwing a baby from a window, but also trying to attack her. Her performance in this scene and throughout the film puts her in this very strong list. Dorothy Phillips would still be a leading actress for some years, but then would slowly fade away to lesser roles, to a point of becoming an extra in the talkie era, a sad destiny for many stars from early cinema. Strangely enough, her last role, if one can call it that, was as a mere townswoman in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance in 1962. She unfortunately died totally forgotten, something unimaginable when she starred in this very popular film in 1918.
In 9th place, Ossie Osvalda for The Oyster Princess. A favorite actress for Ernst Lubitsch back then, Ossie was perfect for comedy, and was also vital for films like The Doll and I Don't Want to Be a Man, both for this iconic director. In The Oyster Princess she once more shines and adds her eternal zaniness to this special movie. This time she had an even meatier role and was surrounded by better actors and supported by a wittier script, and steals the show in every scene that she appears. In real life she married a count and had a long affair with a prince, so maybe being accustomed to aristocracy helped her also in this charming film, and the same can be said about her beginnings as a ballerina. Known as the German Mary Pickford, she was indeed very charismatic and unfortunately was another actress who faded after the arrival of the talkies. Many years later she had to run from Nazi Germany due to her partner being Jewish, and would pass away impoverished in 1947. A bleak ending to such a luminous star.
In 8th place, Pola Negri for Madame du Barry. Known as simply Passion in the United States, this film dearly promoted the careers of Ernst Lubitsch, Emil Jannings and Pola Negri in America, and all three would thrive in the forthcoming years. If anyone has any doubts as to why Pola Negri was such a star back then, all that person has to do is watch a few seconds of her performance as Madame du Barry. Pola Negri steals this picture left, right and center. She is sassy, seductive, funny, and when it is asked of her she also delivers in the more serious, dramatic and inevitably tragic finale of the film. She was pretty much the definition of an European star, and would bring that with her to charm the Americans. It is very difficult to look elsewhere when she is in a scene, even when she is alongside Emil Jannings, and not many people could share a scene with him and not disappear from sight. But Pola was Pola, an absolute cinema star of that time and era.
In 7th place, Edith Erastoff for The Outlaw and His Wife. Edith Erastoff plays Hala, the widow who can't resist the outlaw played by Victor Sjostrom, and risks everything, her good position in society and even her own life later on, in a constant runaway from justice. It is a fierce performance that adds strength and some sense of inevitable desperation to the whole plot. What is even more notorious is that Edith and Victor were lovers back then, and she was already pregnant with one of their childs. She would finally get a divorce from her first husband in 1922 and marry Sjostrom right away, and would die by his side in 1945. The Outlaw and His Wife was one of her last films, since she pretty much devoted her life then to raise her children, only acting in one film in 1921 and only one talkie in 1936. Considering her obvious talent not only in this film, but in A Song of the Scarlet Flower and A Man There Was as well, it can be said that cinema lost a great actress that could have had an even more remarkable career.
In 6th place, Geraldine Farrar for Joan the Woman. Playing Joan of Arc is no piece of cake for any actress. It is a much devoted but also feared role that can bring some heavy criticisms for those who fail. Geraldine Farrar had a lot at stake when she agreed to do this film for Cecil B. DeMille, since she was already an established actress and opera singer at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. But obviously she could not use her voice to help her performance in this silent picture, just as she couldn't use it to help her 1 year before, for Carmen, also directed by DeMille. Add to this the fact that she was too old to play the role of the French youngster who inspires a nation, and the stage was set for a disaster. But Geraldine Ferrar was not such a star in her days for nothing. She embodied the French saint with authority, making everyone soon forget the age difference, and also adding a sense of gravitas and knowledge of her importance for France that sometimes doesn't happen in interpretations of Joan of Arc. The movie not only didn't sink but actually sailed through all those troubled waters with ease, and Geraldine, as much as DeMille, is much to be congratulated for that.
In 5th place, Harriet Boss for Sons of Ingmar. Much more than just the third wife of famous playwright August Strindberg, Harriet Boss was deeply respected in Norway and in A Sons of Ingmar, plays exactly a future wife to Victor Sjöström. In a film adaptation of the first of the novel Jerusalem by Selma Lagerlöf, she has a difficult part in dealing with her love, fear and acceptance of her husband's once brutality to her, to put it mildly and not to spoil the plot. In her debut in cinema she proved that she had talent and experience to spare to not only not be overshadowed by him, but to actually steal the picture outright. So much so that her absence in the film's sequel, Karin Marsdatter, made the film underperform and Sjöström gave up of his idea to shoot all the 4 intended films based on this novel. All that sequel had was a small flashback featuring her and a photo of her on the wall, a reminder of the power of that great actress on the screen and that no film wouldn't suffer by not having her once more acting in it. Harriet Boss herself later admitted that Sons of Ingmar was by far the only real great acting job she got in cinema, having done only other 5 films after this one. She continued her great career in theater, but it was too bad that we didn't have more of that great Scandinavian actress on the silver screen.
In 4th place, Mary Pickford for Stella Maris. Most might know Mary Pickford as only that ultra-famous actress who acted as a youngster in Sweet Little Mighty profitable films and was considered to be America's sweetheart. That was, in a way, her fame back then as well, and she fought to get more respect from the audience as an actress, since she already had their love. She wanted very dearly to play the dual role in Stella Maris, and fought for it, giving one typical Mary Pickford performance, just to please the producers and the audience, and a Unity Blake performance as a bonus, to please herself and to show her real talent as an actress. She surprised everyone to a point of becoming almost unrecognizable in the film, and her scenes performing with herself astonished everyone, a feat of special effects but also of her acting. Mary Pickford had a tough life until becoming famous in cinema, fighting for money and being a breadwinner to her family since she was a child in theater, and was a fierce negotiator and businesswoman behind the cameras, so that might explain why she was able to channel that toughness to the screen, in an incredible performance that surprises everyone up to this very day, more than 100 years later.
In 3rd place, Hilda Borgström for Ingeborg Holm. In the oldest film of this list, Hilda Borgström was indeed acting in a film directed by Victor Sjöström, all right, but that was not the same director that would later do great jobs in cinema such as in The Outlaw and His Wife and in Sons of Ingmar. In the film Ingeborg Holm, released in 1913, he was still learning a lot, as was everybody else in such a new media that was cinema. His direction doesn't help her much, shooting from some distance and without close-ups to help Hilda Borgström's performance. Anyway, even without a director's help, Hilda Borgström excels in the title role and is the major reason that this film became a classic. It is safe to say that it was the first major performance in world cinema that still have impressive scenes of a mother who loses everything and in a touching scene realizes that her son doesn't recognizes her anymore, and what is even worse, many years later in an even more harrowing scene she shows that she had lost her mind to a point that it is herself who doesn't recognize her son any longer. A major performance that was a beacon to everyone that powerful performances could be presented in serious films. Hilda Borgström kept working for many years, deeply respected in Sweden as an actress and acting teacher in the theater, and even had supporting roles in Ingmar Bergman's films in the 40s.
In 2nd place, Lillian Gish for Broken Blossoms. Griffith's quintessential actress, Lillian Gish had a mesmerizing performance in Broken Blossoms as a constantly beaten-down daughter of Donald Crisp that has to fake her smiles with her fingers to make him leave her alone at least for a bit. That acting with her fingers was totally her idea, as was her losing her mind completely in a scene that might appear over the top now, but shocked everyone for the brutality of Donald Crisp using an axe to try to break into her closet, a scene that clearly influenced films like The Shining many years later. Her scenes with Richard Barthelmess are also touching, and she proves in every frame of this film why she was the most respected actress in American cinema at that time. The combination Griffith-Gish was simply too powerful, and when Griffith lost her in the upcoming years, his films inevitably missed her as well, since she was simply the perfect leading lady of the American silent era.
Best Actress of the period 1895 to 1919. Mary Janssen for Sir Arne's Treasure. An actress who was constantly directed by then-famous director Georg F. Klürker in only sweet and innocent roles, Mary Janssen had a real challenge in her hands when she was contacted to star in Sir Arne's Treasure. Being directed by Moritz Stiller certainly helped her, a man who had great talent in dealing with leading ladies. Also working with Richard Lund and the couple Jalmar and Concordia Selander was certainly good, since she had worked with, or for, all of them in the theater. But all that aside, the truth is that she certainly rose to the occasion and passed with flying colors that rigorous test, becoming the heart and soul of Sir Arne's Treasure. Her performance as Elsalil not only engraved her name in Sweden's cinema history, but also showed that no histrionics were required whatsoever to give a great performance in a silent picture. Her acting in this film is natural and totally believable, torn between her desire for revenge and her love for the bandit performed by Richard Lund. It is not a question of being only some years ahead of her time, but decades, practically a century, to a point that she would most likely run for top awards if this film had been released today. Mary Janssen had proved that she was much more than just a pretty face in Sweden's cinema, and at times would be considered, ironically, as Sweden's Lillian Gish. Not much later she would go to Germany and have some success there, and even marry her third and final husband, Rudolf Kleinrock. Second World War devastated the couple though, who lost everything because of it, and had to live in their only remaining possession, a cottage in the city of Graz, in Austria. Many years later she would die totally anonymous back in Sweden, completely forgotten. We can only imagine what would have happened if she went to America instead of Germany. Maybe she would have become huge there, who knows? For a time she had it all, and in the end she had nearly lost it all, such as life in cinema, or such as life anywhere. At least her performance in Sir Arne's Treasure is eternal.